Conscience, that still small voice within us, is the compass guiding our moral journey through life. It resonates with God's truth and goodness, much like a melody that harmonizes with the divine. John Henry Newman, Bishop Robert Barron, and C.S. Lewis all eloquently spoke to the sacred role of conscience, describing it as an echo of God's voice that calls us to align our will with His. Through metaphors, analogies, and scripture, we explore this profound truth. In his letter to the Duke of Norfolk, John Henry Newman described conscience as the aboriginal vicar of Christ. He argued that conscience is not a human construct but a divine gift, an innate faculty placed within us to discern right from wrong. Like a compass pointing toward the true north, conscience directs our hearts toward God's law, written on our hearts. Newman viewed conscience as a living dialogue with God, a whisper that reminds us of our Creator's will. Newman's idea of conscience is twofold. It is a moral sense and a sense of duty. It is the judgment of reason and a magisterial dictate. Although they can function separately, they are indivisible. As a judgment of reason, conscience reflects our rational capacity to discern right from wrong, evaluating moral choices based on logic, principles, and ethical considerations. It involves a thoughtful process of reflection, weighing the consequences and moral implications of our actions. On the other hand, as a magisterial dictate, conscience functions with authoritative command, providing clear and compelling guidance on moral matters. This aspect of conscience is not merely suggestive but exerts a powerful directive force, compelling us to act in accordance with a higher moral law. It represents an innate sense of duty and responsibility, urging us to align our actions with the principles of truth and goodness. Conscience serves as a comprehensive moral compass, integrating reason and authoritative guidance to steer us towards a life of virtue and alignment with divine will. Newman's metaphor of conscience as a vicar captures its sacred function. Just as a vicar acts on behalf of a higher authority, the audience acts as God's representative within us. It punishes us when we stray and affirms us when we act in love and truth. In this way, conscience serves as both guide and guardian, shepherding us toward the fullness of life. Bishop Robert Barron expands on Newman's understanding by emphasizing the relational aspect of conscience. In his reflections, Barron likens conscience to a resonant echo of God's voice bouncing within the chambers of the soul. He often draws upon Augustine's words, "Our hearts are restless until they rest in you, O Lord," to explain how conscience points us toward the ultimate good, union with God. Barron's analogy of resonance underscores how conscience is attuned to divine truth. When we act by God's will, our lives produce harmony, like a well-tuned instrument in an orchestra. Conversely, when we act against our conscience, we feel dissonance, a jarring reminder that we have strayed from the melody of God's plan. The voice of conscience is not just an internal whisper, but a call to participate in the symphony of creation. C.S. Lewis in Mere Christianity presents man's sense of morality or conscience as instinctual and evidence of a higher moral law and, by extension, a moral lawgiver. He famously described it as a voice of God within us, calling it an intuitive awareness of a standard that transcends human invention. To Lewis, conscience is akin to an inner light, illuminating the path of righteousness and exposing the shadows of sin. In one of his analogies, Lewis compares conscience to the relationship between a fleet of ships and their successful voyage. Implicit in this is the necessity for captains who not only understand the destination, but also the sea's currents and the seaworthiness of their ships. Similarly, conscience directs us through the tumultuous waters of moral decisions, steering us toward the safe harbor of virtue. Without this inner captain, we risk being adrift in a sea of relativism. Scripture provides rich support for understanding conscience as God's echo. In 1 Kings chapter 19 verse 12, the prophet Elijah encounters God not in the wind or the earthquake but in a gentle whisper. This reflects how conscience often speaks softly, requiring stillness and attentiveness to discern its guidance. Similarly, in John chapter 8 verse 9, when Jesus' wisdom confronts the Pharisees, their consciences prompt them to drop their stones and walk away. This demonstrates conscience's power to convict and redirect us. The Apostle Paul also affirmed the role of conscience in moral discernment. In 2 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 12, he speaks of living in sincerity and relying on conscience's testimony as a witness to God's grace. Paul's words remind us that conscience is not just a guide but a mirror reflecting God's truth back to us. To understand conscience more deeply, consider the analogy of an echo in a canyon. When we speak, the echo returns our words, often more precise and more resonant than before. Conscience functions similarly. It amplifies God's voice within us, guiding us toward justice, mercy, and humility, as mentioned in Micah chapter 6 verse 8. Yet just as an echo can be muffled by noise or distortion, so too can our conscience be dulled by sin or neglect. This is why regular prayer, reflection, and sacramental grace are essential for maintaining a clear and vibrant conscience. Conscience echoes God's voice, calling us to live in harmony with His truth. As Newman's vicar, Barron's resonance, and Lewis's captain all illustrate, conscience is deeply personal and profoundly universal. It is a gift that connects us to God, guiding us to love as He loves and to act as He wills. We become co-creators in the divine symphony when we heed its call, reflecting God's image. Like the psalmist, we may pray, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me and lead me in the way everlasting." Psalm 139 verses 23 to 24. By cultivating a well-formed conscience, we embrace the echo of God's voice and allow it to transform our lives into a melody of grace.